If you were to step back in time, walking through the creaking screen door of a modest homestead in the sweltering, dust-choked summer of 1932, the first thing that would strike you would not be the lack of modern electrical appliances or the worn, oilcloth-covered kitchen table. It would be the smell of the home. In an era when money was virtually non-existent, when families were stretching every single penny until it bruised, their homes possessed a clean, crisp, and fresh scent that seemed to defy the dust storms raging across the plains outside. It was not the artificial, chemical-laden perfume of modern aerosol sprays or the eye-watering sting of synthetic chlorine bleach. It was a clean born of necessity, of deep-seated wisdom, and of a simple mineral dug from the scorching, white-crusted dry lake beds of the Mojave Desert in the dark days of the Great Depression, when a single bottle of specialized soap was a luxury no one could afford. Mothers, grandmas, and self-reliant Amish communities relied on a single cardboard box with a picture of a 20-mule team on the front. This was sodium borate, known simply to the world as borax. Today, we are told we need a different plastic bottle for every surface in our homes. One for the windows, one for the floors, another for the laundry, and yet another to keep the pests at bay. But the survivors of 1932 knew a secret that the modern chemical industry has spent decades trying to make you forget. They knew that this white, powdery mineral was a powerhouse capable of softening the harshest well water, scouring the oldest porcelain, whitening the dingiest linens, and banishing pests from the pantry forever. To understand how they did it, we must look past the flashy labels of today and peer into the quiet, resilient wisdom of the past, discovering how a simple, natural mineral can restore health, safety, and frugality to our modern lives. To understand the deep roots of this household staple, we must travel back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, long before the Great Depression made self-reliance a daily necessity. The story of borax is intricately tied to the rugged landscapes of the American West. In the searing heat of Death Valley, California, vast deposits of sodium tetraborate lay hidden beneath the salt flats. The discovery of these deposits led to one of the most iconic transport operations in history, the 20-mule teams. These massive teams of animals hauled giant wooden wagons loaded with tons of crude borax across mule-killing terrain, traveling over 160 miles of waterless desert to the nearest railway station. The men who drove these teams were legendary for their endurance, and the mineral they hauled was soon recognized as a treasure of domestic science. As the mineral found its way into general stores across the country, it was quickly adopted by homemakers who realized that this single, naturally occurring substance possessed a chemical versatility that was unmatched. When the economic collapse of the 1930s forced families to cut their budgets to the bone, the box of borax moved from being a helpful convenience to a vital shield against poverty. It represented a connection to the earth, a natural mineral that was safe, effective, and, above all, remarkably cheap. In the modern age, we have been conditioned to believe that cleanliness requires complex, synthetic formulas created in industrial laboratories. When you walk down the cleaning aisle of a modern supermarket, you are confronted by a wall of colorful plastic bottles containing liquid mixtures of petrochemicals, artificial colors, synthetic surfactants, and volatile fragrances. Many of these modern products carry warnings about skin irritation, eye damage, and respiratory harm, and they can leave behind a toxic residue that persists in our living spaces long after the cleaning is done. By contrast, the borax used in 1932 is a naturally occurring mineral compound consisting of sodium, boron, oxygen, and water. Boron is an element found in the Earth's crust and is an essential micronutrient for plants. When combined with sodium and water, it forms sodium borate, a stable compound that does not vaporize or release harmful gases into the air. Unlike modern disinfectants that rely on harsh chemicals to destroy organic matter, borax works through basic chemical properties, adjusting pH and inhibiting the growth of microorganisms without introducing toxic chemicals into your home. Grandma did not need a degree in chemistry to understand that this simple mineral was far safer for her family's lungs and skin than the synthetic products that would later dominate the market. One of the greatest daily struggles for the 1930s homemaker was the laundry. In rural areas and small towns, water was almost always drawn from deep wells, meaning it was hard water, loaded with dissolved minerals like calcium and magnesium. When you tried to wash clothes in hard water using traditional homemade soap, which was made from animal fats and wood ash lye, the minerals in the water would bind with the soap molecules. Instead of dissolving and creating a rich lather, the soap would precipitate out of the water, forming a sticky gray curd that settled back onto the fabrics. This curd, which we now know as soap scum, was incredibly difficult to rinse out. It coated the fibers of the clothes, turning whites into a dingy, yellowish gray, and leaving fabrics feeling stiff, rough, and abrasive against the skin. Even worse, the curd trapped sweat, body oils, and dirt inside the weave, causing clothes to retain stubborn, unpleasant odors. Grandma's secret weapon against this problem was a handful of borax added to the wash tub. The borate ions in the mineral would immediately bind with the calcium and magnesium in the hard water, effectively softening it before the soap was even added. This allowed the soap to dissolve fully and perform its proper job of lifting and suspending dirt, resulting in cleaner, softer clothes and a significant saving of precious soap. Picture the scene of a typical 1932 wash day, a weekly ritual that usually took place on Mondays. The homemaker would wake before dawn, build a fire under the large copper wash boiler in the yard or on the kitchen stove, and carry gallons of water from the pump. The work was physically demanding and required hours of standing over steaming tubs, scrubbing collars and cuffs on a corrugated metal washboard, and feeding wet garments through a hand-cranked wringer, because every piece of clothing was an investment meant to last for years. Preserving the fabric was just as important as getting it clean. Grandma could not afford to use harsh chemicals that would degrade the fibers and cause the fabric to thin and tear. This is why borax was so highly valued. While it was tough on dirt and stains, it was incredibly gentle on the cotton, linen, and wool fibers. By adding borax to the wash, she ensured that the family's shirts, trousers, and bedsheets remained strong and durable, extending the life of their wardrobe at a time when buying new clothes was simply out of the question. Keeping white fabrics bright and spotlessly clean was a point of pride for the Depression-era homemaker, but it was no easy task without modern synthetic bleaches. Commercial chlorine bleach, while effective at whitening, was known to be highly corrosive, gradually eating away at the threads and shortening the lifespan of the linens. Grandma's method for whitening her sheets, pillowcases, and table linens was a natural pre-soak using borax. When borax is dissolved in warm water, it undergoes a mild chemical reaction that releases small amounts of hydrogen peroxide. This natural peroxide acts as a gentle bleaching agent, lifting yellow discoloration, tea stains, and food spills from the fabric without harming the threads. Grandma would let her whites soak in a tub of borax water overnight, allowing the mineral to work its way deep into the fibers. The next day, she would wash the clothes and hang them out on the clothesline. As the damp white fabrics hung in the fresh air, the ultraviolet rays of the sun would react with the remaining trace minerals of the borax, creating a brilliant, natural whiteness that no chemical detergent could replicate. The clothes dried in the wind, smelling of nothing but pure sunshine and fresh air. In addition to whitening, Borax was the ultimate weapon against tough odors and grease stains. Homestead life was filled with smells that could easily settle into clothing. The heavy odor of wood smoke from the stoves, the smell of coal dust, the grease from farm machinery, and the strong odors of the barnyard and stables. Traditional soaps often struggled to neutralize these organic smells, merely masking them temporarily. Borax worked differently. Because of its unique molecular structure, it acted as a natural deodorizer, neutralizing the acidic compounds that caused odors rather than just covering them up. For garments that were heavily soiled with grease or oils, Grandma would make a concentrated solution of borax and warm water, using it to pre-treat the stained areas before washing. The alkaline properties of the borax helped to emulsify the heavy grease, breaking it down so it could be easily washed away. This simple pre-treatment saved countless work shirts and trousers from being permanently stained and ruined, ensuring the family always looked neat and presentable despite their hard daily labor. Moving from the laundry room to the kitchen, cleanliness was the first and most important line of defense against foodborne illness. In 1932, food safety was a constant concern. Home refrigeration was a luxury that few could afford, meaning that food had to be prepared fresh or kept in cool pantries and cellars. A dirty kitchen could quickly attract pests or breed bacteria, leading to sickness that a family could ill afford. The focal point of the kitchen was the sink, often a beautiful but delicate cast iron basin finished with a glossy white porcelain glaze. To clean this sink and the surrounding countertops without scratching them, Grandma made her own scouring powder. Modern commercial scouring cleansers often contain silica or other harsh abrasives that scratch the porcelain glaze, leaving microscopic grooves that trap dirt and rust, making the sink look dull and permanently stained. Grandma's recipe was simple and safe. She mixed 2 parts of borax with 1 part of baking soda. She would sprinkle this powder onto a damp cloth and scrub the sink. The borax crystals provided just enough friction to lift away dried-on food and coffee stains, yet they dissolved gradually in the water, ensuring that the smooth porcelain glaze remained undamaged and shiny. The kitchen stove was another area that required regular maintenance. In the 1930s, most meals were prepared on a heavy cast-iron cook stove fueled by wood or coal. Cooking daily meals for a large family meant dealing with splattered animal fats, boiled-over stews, and carbon soot that accumulated on the stovetop and inside the oven. Modern oven cleaners are among the most hazardous products in our homes, containing highly caustic chemicals like sodium hydroxide that can burn the skin and eyes and release dangerous fumes. Grandma's method was far safer and just as effective. She would mix borax with a small amount of warm water to form a thick, spreadable paste. She would apply this paste directly to the greasy, carbon-caked surfaces of the stove and let it sit for about 30 minutes. As the paste sat, the alkaline borax reacted with the fats and oils, converting them into a water-soluble compound. She could then simply wipe the grease away with a damp cloth. For especially tough, burnt-on crusts, she would spray or wipe a little white vinegar over the borax paste, creating a bubbling reaction that lifted the debris from the iron, leaving the stove clean and ready for the next meal. As the warmth of summer faded into the cool, damp days of autumn, the focus of the homestead shifted to the root cellar. The cellar was the life support system of the household, filled with rows of home-canned jars, crates of apples, bins of potatoes, and hanging cured meats. However, the damp, dark environment of an underground cellar was also the perfect breeding ground for mold and mildew. Mold was not just an unsightly nuisance. It could ruin a winter's worth of food, bringing rot to the vegetables and contamination to the preserves. To protect their winter supplies, Grandma would perform a thorough cleaning of the cellar before the harvest was brought in. She would mix a strong solution of borax in hot water and use it to scrub the wooden shelves, the storage bins, and the stone walls. Borax is a natural fungicide and disinfectant that inhibits the growth of mold spores. Instead of rinsing the shelves after scrubbing, she would allow them to air dry. This left behind a microscopic barrier of borat crystals on the wood and stone. This dry, invisible film prevented mold spores from taking root, ensuring that the food remained safe, dry, and free of decay throughout the winter. This same mold-preventing solution was used to clean the walls and floors of the main living spaces. In the 1930s, homes were heated by wood or coal stoves, which released a fine layer of soot that settled on the walls and ceilings over time. To clean this soot without stripping the paint or damaging the wood, Grandma would wash the walls with a dilute solution of borax and warm water. The borax cut through the greasy soot easily, leaving the walls clean and bright. On the floors, whether they were made of bare hardwood, linoleum, or stone, a borax wash was the standard. Unlike modern commercial floor cleaners that leave behind a sticky, chemical residue that actually attracts dust and dirt over time, the borax solution dried clean and residue-free. It neutralized the musty odors that could accumulate in a house closed up for the winter, leaving the rooms smelling clean and fresh, while also acting as a natural deterrent to the insects that might try to crawl inside to escape the cold. Among the most closely guarded secrets of the Depression-era homestead was the use of borax for pest control, a method that has been preserved by the Amish communities for generations. In the 19th and 20th centuries, keeping pests out of the food supply was a critical task. Ants, cockroaches, and silverfish were constant threats to the flour, sugar, and dried fruits stored in the pantry. While modern homeowners often rely on chemical exterminators who spray synthetic neurotoxins throughout the living space, Grandma and the Amish used a deeper understanding of insect biology to solve the problem. Insects are protected by a thin outer layer on their bodies called the exoskeleton, which is coated in a waxy substance that prevents the evaporation of the water inside their bodies. Borax is composed of tiny, crystalline structures that, to an insect, are as sharp as broken glass. When pure borax powder is lightly dusted in the cracks, crevices, and entry points of a home, any crawling insect that walks through it will have its waxy exoskeleton scratched and damaged by the abrasive crystals. This physical damage disrupts their ability to retain moisture, causing them to dehydrate and die. But the abrasive physical action of the borax is only half of the trap. Insects are naturally clean creatures and spend a large portion of their lives grooming themselves to keep their antennae and legs free of dust. When an insect walks through a line of borax, the fine powder clings to their legs and body. As they groom themselves later, they inevitably ingest the mineral. Once inside the insect's digestive tract, the borax acts as a slow-acting stomach poison. It interferes with their digestive enzymes and disrupts their water balance, leading to death by dehydration from the inside. The fact that borax is slow-acting is actually its greatest advantage, particularly when dealing with social insects like ants. An ant that finds a borax bait does not die immediately. Instead, it carries the bait back to the nest and shares it with the queen and the rest of the colony. Within a few days, the entire nest is eliminated, solving the pest problem at its source. To make this bait, Grandma would mix equal parts of borax and confectioner's sugar, placing small spoonfuls of the mixture in shallow jar lids under the kitchen sink, behind the pantry shelves, and along the baseboards. Silverfish were another common household pest, particularly dreaded because of their habit of feeding on starch, paper, and natural fibers. They could quickly destroy precious family documents, books, and winter blankets stored in wooden chests and closets. Instead of using toxic mothballs, which fill the home with a sharp chemical odor that is difficult to wash out of fabrics and has been linked to health issues, Grandma relied on borax. She would sprinkle a light dusting of the powder in the back corners of closets, along the baseboards, and inside the drawers of storage trunks. Because silverfish have flat, delicate bodies that crawl close to the surface, they were especially vulnerable to the abrasive action of the borax crystals. The powder protected the stored items silently and without odor, ensuring that when the winter woolens were retrieved, they were clean, fresh, and free of holes. A simple shake or wash was all that was needed to remove the powder, demonstrating the simplicity and elegance of the method. The care of carpets and rugs in the 1930s also relied heavily on the versatility of borax. In those days, carpets were made of natural fibers like wool and cotton, and they were often hand-woven or braided by family members. They represented hours of labor and were highly valued. Cleaning them was a major event, but maintaining them between deep cleanings was just as important. Fleas, carpet beetles, and moths were constant threats, especially in homes where farm dogs and working animals were allowed inside. To protect these valuable rugs and keep them smelling fresh, Grandma would sprinkle a thin layer of borax over the carpet. She would let the powder sit in the fibers for several hours or overnight. As the borax sat, it absorbed excess moisture and neutralized the musty, organic odors that wool carpets can trap. At the same time, any flea larvae or carpet beetle eggs hidden in the base of the carpet fibers were exposed to the dehydrating action of the mineral. When the carpet was swept or beaten, the dirt, odors, and pests were removed together, leaving the rugs clean, fresh, and protected against future infestations without the use of chemical sprays. When we step back and compare Grandma's methods with the way we clean our homes today, the contrast is eye-opening. The modern cleaning industry has spent decades convincing us that we need a different specialized chemical product for every single surface in our homes. We have plastic bottles for glass, tiles, toilets, stainless steel, wood, and granite, each containing a complex cocktail of synthetic chemicals, artificial dyes, and strong perfumes. These products are not only expensive, adding a significant burden to the household budget, but they also introduce toxic substances into our indoor air. Many of these chemicals have been linked to respiratory issues, skin allergies, hormone disruption, and long-term health concerns. Grandma's 1932 system showed that we do not need a cabinet full of poisons to keep our homes clean and healthy. By understanding the chemical properties of a single natural mineral like borax, and combining it with other simple non-toxic ingredients like vinegar, baking soda, and water, she could achieve excellent results while protecting her family's health and saving money. The Amish communities have maintained these traditions of cleanliness, simplicity, and frugality to this day, showing us that these historical methods are just as relevant now as they were a century ago. In an Amish home, you will not find cabinets stuffed with commercial sprays, chemical disinfectants, or synthetic pest baits. Instead, you will see a simple jar of borax sitting alongside a jug of vinegar, a box of baking soda, and a block of homemade soap. They use these basic ingredients because they work, they are economical, and they align with a lifestyle that values stewardship of the land and the health of the family. The Amish know that the key to a clean, healthy home is not the strength of the chemicals you buy, but the consistency of the habits you practice. They use borax to clean their kitchens, wash their laundry, maintain their dairy equipment, and protect their large pantries from pests, proving that these simple ways remain highly effective and sustainable in our modern world. By returning to the simple, time-tested methods of our grandparents, we can create a healthier, more sustainable home environment. A box of borax is a reminder of a time when people lived in harmony with nature, using their hands and their minds to build a clean and resilient life. It teaches us that true cleanliness is not about masking odors with artificial perfumes, but about neutralizing them at the source. It shows us that we can protect our homes from pests without introducing poisons into the air we breathe, and that we can care for our clothes and household goods in a way that respects both the items and our health. If you find yourself longing to return to these time-tested ways, to simplify your home, protect your family's health, and save money using the lessons of the past, you do not have to figure it all out on your own. The wisdom of our grandparents has been carefully preserved, compiled into a comprehensive guide designed for the modern homesteader. This is the complete 1932 system, consisting of Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3. Within these volumes, you will find the precise, step-by-step instructions, the forgotten household recipes, the natural pest control formulas, and the seasonal calendars that guided families through the hardest years of the Great Depression. It is a complete blueprint for self-reliance, frugal living, and natural home management. To get your own printable copy of these guides, along with the recipes and calendars, simply click the link in the first pinned comment below. By bringing this historical wisdom into your home today, you are not just saving money, you are keeping a legacy of resilience, strength, and simple living alive for the generations to come.